In the environs of Kathmandu, the mercury has plummeted. The trend has been continuing for the past few days, even as there are reports that the year 2023 will be the warmest year in the last 125 lakh years. It's a pleasant weather in Kathmandu. It's biting cold, but when you are inside your houses, then you can manage. But what about the people without shelter, without food, without warmth? I'm talking about the people of Jajarkot and West Rukum, whose lives have been just wrecked because of that 6.4 magnitude earthquake that struck last Friday at midnight. Let's talk about them today. Let's think about them. Let's think if we can do anything about them, because they need help from all quarters, whether it's from the government, from donor agencies, from the non-government organizations, etc. Last week, after just days after the 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck Jajarkot and West Rukum districts of Nepal, in western Nepal, the government uh, announced the end of search and rescue operations in a relatively small time. It was swift, if the government is to be believed, but this relief distribution phase, the relief distribution phase of the government has not been as effective as it should be. In fact, several media reports have reported that people have been waiting for basic amenities like food, drinking water, medicine, and tents for quite some time. Several high profile visits have taken place to these affected areas, to the backwaters of Jajarkot and West Rukum. Pledges, promises have poured in from the Prime Minister, the President of Nepal, the Home Minister, other ministers, and lawmakers. Nepal has that federal structure. It has adopted federalism. It means the government should be at the doorsteps of the people. That was the very idea behind federalism, wasn't it? When the constitution of the erstwhile kingdom of Nepal in 2015 adopted a federalist constitution passed through the Constituent Assembly, a popularly elected body entrusted with the making of a new constitution. Nepal has government at the center, in the provinces, and at local levels, around 753 local levels there are. They are supposed to rush in supplies. They are supposed to reach out to the people in times of need. whether it's the federal government and the provincial one or local levels. But that did not happen this time as well. As I told you earlier, high profile visits occurred, took place there in those affected areas, and what these VIPs and VVIPs did was assured the survivors that they will do every bit to rebuild their lives. Despite these high profile chopper rides to these affected areas, help has been hard to come by for the affected people of Jajarkot and West Rukum. Media reports suggest that even the tarpaulins, are hard to just come by for most of the affected people. For days on end, they have been without food, water, and medicines. But what they have got in return from the state, what has the taxpayer got from the state in times of need? Nothing, virtually nothing, except for the pledges, for the promises, for those house high sounding promises from the top echelons of Nepal. Media reports suggest that only homeowners, only house owners are entitled to things like the tarps. Why I am talking about the tarps in particular? Because these people have been shelterless. Debris are debris are what remain of their homesteads. That means they need those tents to shield themselves from a biting cold. In the Himalayan regions of Nepal, this green winter, protecting oneself from the cold is one of the top priorities, and the government's priority should be also to protect these shelterless people from cold. But what the government officials are saying for media reports is that uh, one needs to have that land ownership certificate, that kind of thing, uh, documentary proof that they they had a house, they had a proper house to get those starts. That means people who had been living in shanties or living on rents at the district headquarters. For them, it is not at all possible to get the tarps, leave alone food and medicine and drinking water. And there are also reports that representatives of organizations working for disaster relief have centered their activities around towns and cities. They have not bothered to visit the backwaters with relief materials. This means the most affected people have been left high and dry in these trying times. Reports point that aid has been pouring into the Prime Minister's relief fund, but the assistance has not trickled down. It has not trickled down to the needy. That is the most worrisome part of this disaster. The quake in itself is a disaster, but this instability plagued state system has been another disaster. This instability, corruption plagued state that itself is in a quandary. It has been a more severe disaster for the quake victims, the quake survivors of Rukum and Jajarkot districts. It appears that the state has not learned crucial lessons from a series of earthquakes that have battered Nepal over the decades, leave alone the quakes that occurred centuries ago. The government does not seem to have learnt vital lessons from the Gorkha earthquake that occurred 8 years ago. That quake killed around 10,000 people, displaced lakhs of people, and destroyed properties worth billions of rupees. The government does not have seemed to learn. The government has not learnt its lessons from those disasters because Nepal is a quake prone country. Nepal is on a seismic fault zone. So there were speculations that western Nepal uh, may receive mega jolts. It was just a matter of when and how much and of what magnitude. This energy had been building uh, for centuries, I mean decades in Western Nepal, and it had to be released. That nature had to release that energy through quake. Reports suggested that and expressed concern. They had expressed concern that Western Nepal may receive mega jolts like this one. But the government had not stepped up preparedness, stepped up disaster preparedness to deal with possible quakes. That's why this massive loss of life, 160 people, around 160 people have already died in the quake. Thousands of people have become homeless. Uh, per a United Nations report, around 1.3 million people have been exposed to the earthquake, and 0.25 million people needed assistance in the immediate aftermath of the quake. But uh, within 72 hours, but then the government could not do that, leaving a large section of the population in the backwaters of Nepal uh, vulnerable to the vagaries of weather, to like shortages of medicines and other essentials. That means the taxpayer has every right to question as to where the government funds go, if not for the relief, for if not for providing for the most affected populations. It's time the government got its acts together and worked in tandem with security agencies, political parties, civil society, donor agencies, and the general public to save lives. The government has introduced, by the way, a new guideline governing the social media. I hope this remark is like soft enough to not rattle, to not ruffle the feathers of a government that seems bent on uh, controlling social media one way or the other. It is to be also noted that anarchy has been reigning supreme on social media. Uh, some control is indeed necessary, but the government should make sure that it does not end up curtailing freedoms, it does not end up curbing the right to expression. Worldwide, governments of different hues and shades have this tendency to ride roughshod on civil liberties. They have every they have shown, whether it's so-called democracies or dictatorships, they all have this tendency to undermine checks and balances, the principles of checks and balances, as well as the separation of powers. Uh, I hope the government also stays within its bounds while seeking to rein in the anarchy that has been plaguing social media. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. I request you to provide uh, all possible help to those in need. I request you to subscribe also to this channel, comment on our presentation, and press that like button. We are trying to be your true voice through this channel that aims to promote citizen journalism. We request you to support us by subscribing to this channel, commenting on our presentation, and pressing that like button. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.